Number 1. The mirror that wasn't meant for beauty before mirrors became something you checked before leaving the house. They were symbols of death. The earliest mirrors, polished obsidian stones from 600 years ago, weren't made to admire your reflection. They were used to speak to the dead. In ancient Mesoamerican rituals, shamans stared into black mirrors to contact spirits, believing the glass was a portal between worlds. Later, in Europe, mirrors were covered during funerals to stop the soul of the dead from getting trapped inside. Even today, some old cultures still turn mirrors to the wall when someone dies. So, the next time you catch your reflection and think it's harmless vanity, remember, you're looking into what was once considered a doorway to the afterlife. Number 2, lipstick born from blood and death. That tube of lipstick in your bag? It has a past painted in blood. Ancient Egyptians were among the first to use lipstick not for beauty, but for protection against death. They crushed beetles and mixed the pigment with fish scales, creating a shimmer that was said to ward off evil spirits. But centuries later, in medieval Europe, lipstick became the mark of a witch. Women caught wearing it could be executed for tempting men through demonic influence. By the 18th century, the formula itself turned deadly. Early lipsticks contained lead, mercury, and carmine derived from crushed insects, slowly poisoning the wearer in the name of fashion. So while we swipe it on for confidence, our ancestors wore for survival or died trying. Number 3. Umbrellas and the curse of the pharaohs opening an umbrella indoors might seem like a silly superstition, but its origins are far darker. In ancient Egypt, umbrellas were sacred objects used only by nobility not to block rain, but to shield mortals from the son of Ra, the god of life. To open one under a roof, away from the sunlight, was seen as mocking the gods, an act that invited divine punishment. Centuries later, that same belief twisted into Europe's superstition that opening an umbrella indoors would bring death into the home. Even more chilling, early explorers in Egypt who disturbed royal tombs often carried parasols to shade themselves, and many later died mysteriously. Maybe that's coincidence. Or maybe, even now, the gods still don't like being mocked. Number 4. The fork that marked you as a sinner. That harmless fork on your dinner table once symbolized blasphemy. When the fork appeared in medieval Europe, the church condemned it as a tool of the devil. Why? Because eating with metal prongs was seen as imitating the claws of Satan. At royal banquets, nobles who dared to use forks were mocked or even excommunicated. One Venetian princess was cursed by priests after introducing the utensil to Italy, and when she died young, the church called it divine punishment. Ironically, the fork's design came from funeral rituals in the Byzantine Empire, where skewers were used to handle burned offerings of the dead. So, the next time you twirl pasta or stab a salad, just know you're holding a relic once feared as a mark of sin. Number 5. Toothbrushes in a war that created hygiene. The object you use every morning to stay clean was born out of war and imprisonment. In the 1700s, Englishman William Addis was thrown in jail for starting a riot. Inside his filthy cell, he used a bone from his dinner and bristles from a guard's broom to make the world's first modern toothbrush. After his release, Addis mass-produced his prison invention, but hygiene wasn't the motive. Disease outbreaks were rampant in crowded cities, and governments saw clean teeth as a way to prevent rebellion by controlling public health. Before that, soldiers in ancient China used pig hair brushes to scrape decay after battlefield meals, hygiene born from survival. So every time you brush your teeth to feel fresh, remember the ritual began not in comfort, but in captivity. Number 6. Alarm clocks designed to wake the dead. We curse alarm clocks for ruining our sleep, but their origin lies in something much darker than lost rest. The first mechanical alarm wasn't built to wake workers. It was made by monks in the 14th century to wake for midnight prayers for the dead. These early devices rang through catacombs and monasteries, marking the hours of departed, when souls were believed to wander between worlds. Later, during the Industrial Revolution, alarm clocks became tools to control factories, used them to regiment human labor, replacing church bells with mechanical obedience. In a way, The alarm clock evolved from a symbol of spiritual duty to a symbol of servitude. So when that shrill sound dragged you from your dreams, remember it was once meant to remind humanity that even in sleep, death keeps time. Number 7. The innocent dolls possessed past a child's doll might seem harmless soft, smiling, a symbol of innocence. But its history is anything but. The first dolls weren't toys. They were vessels for spirits. In ancient Egypt and Greece, small human effigies were buried with the dead to act as servants in the afterlife. Centuries later, in Japan, Hina dolls were believed to absorb misfortune after rituals. They were sent floating down rivers, carrying away evil spirits. In Europe, witches were accused of crafting poppets. Primitive dolls used to curse or harm their victims from afar. And some modern legends, like the story of Robert the Doll, in Florida still carry echoes of that belief. So when you see a doll staring blankly from a shelf, remember, it wasn't always meant to comfort children. Sometimes it was built to house something else. Number 8. High heels in the executioner's stance today. High heels are fashion, but they started as instruments of power and blood. In 10th century Persia, soldiers wore heels to anchor their feet in stirrups while firing arrows from horseback. When European aristocrats adopted the style centuries later, it wasn't for beauty, it was to look taller, crueler, and untouchable. King Louis XIV of France even made red heels exclusive to nobles, the color symbolizing spilled blood, the mark of status built on war and execution. Later, executioners in France reportedly wore raised heels to stay above the blood that pooled beneath the guillotine. What began as a symbol of dominance became a symbol of desire. But every step taken in heels still echoes with that history, where elegance was just another form of intimidation. Number 9. Wedding rings. In the chain of ownership, we think of wedding rings as symbols of love eternal, unbroken, pure. But their origins trace back to ownership and control. In ancient Rome, iron rings were given brides not as tokens of affection, but as proof of possession. They were contract a woman's value, literally sealed around her finger. The ring finger itself was chosen because Romans believed a vein ran directly from it to the heart divina, a romantic myth used to justify a social cage. Even the circular shape wasn't about love's eternity. It symbolized a close bond of property, where wives were expected never to escape. So that glittering gold band we call promise today, it began as a chain, polished and resized for comfort. Number 10. Perfume concealing the scent of death. We wear perfume to smell alive, but its story began among the dead. In ancient Egypt, perfumes were used not to attract lovers, but to mask the stench of corpses. Priests anointed mummies with fragrant oils like myrrh and frankincense, believing the scent would guide souls safely through the underworld. Centuries later, during Europe's plague years, people drenched themselves in perfume to disguise the smell of decay and disease. They believed the sweet air would protect them from the deadly miasma that carried sickness. Even the word perfume comes from Latin perfumum, meaning through smoke. Because the earliest scents weren't worn, they were burned, offered to gods who demanded sacrifice. So that pleasant fragrance you spray each morning, it's the ghost of rituals built on rot, wrapped in the illusion of beauty. Conclusion: the beauty of what we choose to forget. We live surrounded by ghosts hidden in plain sight. The mirror on your wall, the lipstick in your bag, the perfume on your skin, all born from fear, death, ritual, and control softened over centuries until their stories were forgotten. That's the strange thing about civilization. We polish the past until it shines, but the darkness beneath never really goes away. Every object we touch carries an echo of the people who suffered for it, prayed over it, or died because of it. And yet, maybe that's what makes them human. We turn weapons into comforts, curses into customs, death into design. So the next time you hold something ordinary, look closer. You might not just see its function, but feel its shadow. Because sometimes the most familiar things are the ones built from fear.